Now, who doesn't need a little more workbench space in their workshop? I know I do. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Victory Woodworks with Vic, and I'm Vic. Today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out how we can create some additional workbench space inside this tiny shop. In the past, you've seen me working a lot on this hardboard, which kind of works, but it's got a lot of flex to it, as you can see here. Okay, so the thought here is to replace the hardwood with plywood and make it hinged in the middle so we can kind of fold it up and put it away when we actually want to use a table saw. So here we got some plywood. One piece like that, and one piece like that. So basically, same exact thing as the hardwood, except it's plywood, so now we don't have the same kind of flex. Do a little test cut in here. I've already tried one, seemed to work well. Basically, we're just going to take the hinge, we're just going to lay it up against this. We're just going to draw right around it, and we're just going to cut. And the way we're going to cut is we're just going to plunge down and just kind of follow the tracing of the line. That's basically it. So let's see if this fits. Fits in, I don't know if you can see that, but fits in nicely into here. The level is perfect. I think this is going to make a nice type of cut. Now, I will say also, using the plunge base with these handles is a whole lot easier than just kind of trying to do it like this by hand. Here you've got two hands, you've got a wider base. You've got more control, you feel like you've got more control. So let's mark out on here where we want to put our hinges. Okay, let's measure out exactly where we want these. We got the large T-square. We got a little square here to do the verticals. We're going to put this right along the edge here. This way both boards are flush. First things first, we're going to put one right in the middle. I think that would probably be the best. So we've got just about 48, and it looks like just a little bit. So this is slightly oversized. So we're going to go around 24 and a 16th. You know what? So we got 6, 15, 24, and 6, 15, and 24. You know what? You can probably place them anywhere you like. That's where I'm going to place these. Now what we're going to do is figure out exactly how we're going to put these on here. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing. Put another one hinge on the, the 6-inch mark, just to make sure everything folds the way we expect it to. And then what we'll do is we'll fully router and sink these all the way in. Got 2 hinges in. Each one's got 2 screws in it. So let's see if this thing folds over the way we expect it to, or do we create another problem? Now that is exactly what I was looking for. Okay. All right, so we're on the right track. So next what we're going to do is we're going to put in the other 3, and then we're going to route these down so they're flush. So we've got all 5 hinges in now. Now let's just make sure they still work. Now I'm looking forward to using this as opposed to hardboard, because this hardboard had a lot of flex to it. This 3/4 inch plywood's got a whole lot less flex. So I'm hoping that it'll just perform as a much better much better countertop or workbench top than the hardboard. I don't see why I wouldn't. Now, you know, we routed these holes. They're not perfect. They're, you know, 80, 85% there. But you know what? Everything's flush. Everything's smooth. These hinges will keep hopefully the plywood from twisting, warping, and bending too much. I think for a shop project, for what this is going to be, is basically just a safety top for my table saw, so I don't ruin that. I think it's going to be perfect. No issues here. Hey, before we call this project done, why don't we just nip off these corners so nobody gets poked all too hard. I figure maybe 2 inches off of each corner should be good. So it's about there. And about there. Let's draw a little line so we can see what we're doing. It's like right there and right there. So this is where we're going to clamp this down. Just to make this a little more pleasant to handle, after we've cut off the corners, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with a slight round over just on the edges, just to so you don't catch yourself on anything that you don't want to be caught on. Okay, I'm hanging over the table pretty well. I'm going to start over here and go, I guess, clockwise. Just in case any leftover burrs. Splinters, or otherwise. Now let's keep in mind, this is not a fine piece of furniture. This is a top that needs to be used and abused so that the table saw underneath does not get used and abused. We're back here a couple days later. It's 15 degrees outside. We've had the heater on. I don't know if you can see it back there. I managed to get the shove up to about 62 or 63 degrees, which is good enough for what we're doing out here. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out a way of securing this top to the table saw so it doesn't move around like this. The thought I had was to get these threaded inserts. You know, I got them in my little box here. These little threaded inserts. Set 1 or 2 into the board, and then using these knobs that are 1/4 20, thread a bolt through from underneath and just lock it in. The reason I can do that, or the way I want to do that, is if we look over here. The reason we can do that is I've got this plate here that is being used really for my over-the-saw dust collection, which I don't really use all that often, but it's here. It's about flush, and it's got a hole in it. So I'm thinking I could put the threaded, or a bolt right up through into the threaded insert right into the board, and that'll lock it into place. If I put 2 of them in there, it'll lock it in so that it is what it is. I mean, it'll be, at least this end will be locked in, so it won't move on me. So I'm thinking that's what we're going to do. Okay, first up first is we're going to find the center of the board here, which should be around 24. Well, actually, it's a little less. We got 23, let me see, 47 3/4, which would be 23 and change. I'm going to take this square, and this is essentially the center of our board. Now what we're going to do is center it right where we want it. And you know what? We want a little overhang on both sides, clamping or otherwise. This looks to be about the right spot. So what we're going to do is I've aligned the table pretty much centered where I want it. I'm going to get the edge square to the bracket down here. And it is now square. And what I'm going to do from underneath is find those little holes and just kind of mark it on our board so we know exactly where we want that insert to be. And there's two of them. These particular inserts suggest 23/64 hole, but what I found is that that's actually a little too big. So I'm going to use this 21/64, and hopefully that will be that'll be good. So I'm just getting this locked in so we don't go through all the way. We're going to put in a little block in here, and we should probably tape off how far we want to drill this in, because we don't want it to go all the way through, because then we'll have, you know, have a bolt sticking potentially out the other side. So I'm just going to tape it off. Okay, choose a little chamfer bit to clean up the hole, make it easier to set in each one of those nuts or inserts. Okay, we're just going to drive these straight in. A little super glue or a little epoxy or something. Oh, that's perfect right there. All right, let's get this. So let's just give it a little test and see how we did. So we're going to need one of these 1/4 screws. And in my case, I'm using 1.5 inches because that should be the proper distance from underneath all the way through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive it in from the top into here, lock it in, and then drive it from underneath. So I found that there's a slight gap here between the base plate and the board. So when it pulls down, it's got a little bit of a little movement and a little bit of flex. So that gap happens to be about 5/16 of an inch. And then I found this little piece of scrap, which is also about 5/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it down to be, you know, about, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches wide. I may notch it just a little bit so it slips right over, right where these bolts would be coming through, so that it holds this part of the board so we've got something to tighten up against. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut the wood down to about 6 or 7 inches or so. I cut in some holes or drilled in some holes that'll fit right over where they need to. So, and we can also slip it on after the fact. So let's put this back together and see what happens. What I ought to do also is, as I'm slipping this on, is figure out exactly where those screws are, and then draw a little line for myself so it's easier to align. So when I line it up, I know it should be right about here. Let's put this one in. Put the second one in. Slip in our little spacer. Push everything forward and tighten it on down. Our final two steps here are to basically just sand the top, make sure there are no splinters or anything else out here, and then put on some sort of finish to protect the top as much as possible. I don't think anybody likes watching sanding, so I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll come back when it's a little bit warmer in here and I can put on a coat of polyurethane. I believe I'm going to use polyurethane to just cover everything up. If I put it on right now, because it's so cold outside, when I turn off the heat later, the finish is going to fail. So I'd rather not have to do that more than once. So we may not be able to get to that till who knows when, but we'll see. So if you like what you just saw here today, learned something new, please like, subscribe, comment down. Let me know what it is you guys are thinking and what you want me to do next. Stay passionate. See you in the next video.